Okay, so let's get started. What I'll do is this session that we'll be going through with will consist of a few of the things in our playwright workshop session. So this will be an interactive. Whenever and wherever you people think that you are getting any issues, probably it might be new for you people. So if you get stuck at any point of time, um, you can stop me. So this workshop will consist of a couple of things. One is to understanding the advantage of playwright. Okay, so we'll talk about what is the advantage of playwright and why people are going for why people and organization are going towards a playwright implementation. Second, we'll see like how do we install and set up the playwright in our local system. So this will also will cover up in our session. And third, we'll write a basic test case in Playwright, again using JavaScript. And this course, the course that will be starting after our workshop or whenever we'll be starting, will also consist of the TypeScript part as well. So both JavaScript and TypeScript will be covered. In our today's session, we'll try to complete a basic scenario as well, where we'll go through with one of a scenario and try to automate a basic test case. And we'll see how do we write that, how easy are in terms of the playwright, apart from the tools, apart from the different tools that we have in the market right now for the automation. And then if after this, if time permits, we'll also go for generation of a framework for whatever the test case that we write it over here. So generation of a framework in page object model. Okay, so these four things we'll try to cover up, and we'll see like how efficient it is in terms of going through with the playwright, how easy it used to be in terms of setting up, what are the different advantages that we have over other tools, other existing tools in the market. And we'll also talk about why people are going towards playwright, and organization are going toward playwrights. And in the last, we'll also go for the question answer session. Okay. So before starting it, like, may I know how many of you know, like, how many of you have previously worked on any of the tools and technology in terms of automation? It can be any tools and it can be any technologies. Okay,
Yeah, this is Suresh. Like I worked in U of T and also Selenium with Java.
okay. Any other person have worked on any of the tools or technologies, Selenium, RFT? Okay.
I worked on Cypress.
Oh, Cypress using JavaScript. That's good. Okay.
Yes.
Other than this, Selenium. Okay, great. So most of you have gone through with some of the tools and technology in your previous. So generally, it will not be hard for you people to understand. But let's get started and see how it is working. Okay. So in this workshop, we'll try to keep it as much as interactive, not a like not a one-way session. If it will be an interactive, we'll learn more and more, and we'll see like what are the maximum things that we can cover up in our session. Okay, so first thing that I'll try to cover up, like what is the basic advantage that we have in terms of playwright over other technologies, other tools that we have available in the market. Okay, so let's get started and see what are the different advantages that we have in playwright. I'll talk about the architecture in detail in some other sessions, because that takes like at least 30 minutes to make you people understand what is the complete architecture of playwright. But in overall, if I talk about the architecture, is very simple. We have, if you people have already worked on Selenium, then you might be knowing that Selenium is also having some kind of architecture. Architecture means it is basically a client and server based architecture, right? Architecture in the sense, what is generally mean by architecture? Can anyone answer, please? Um, what is meant by architecture of any of the tools or technologies? Okay, so it used to be, the workflow. It generally used to be how the flow of the tools works. Okay, in the sense, what are the different things that we require to work with the tools, how the tools work whenever we write the test case, and whenever we try to execute the test case, how it start executing the test case, what will happen before starting the test case, what will happen in between, what will happen after completion of the test case. So this is what called as architecture, the complete flow of the tools. Okay, so in terms of Selenium, as most of you have gone through, so you might be knowing that Selenium is a client and server-based architecture. Playwright is also a client and server-based architecture. Now, what is client and what is server? So, client is something where we write the code. So, where do we write the code in general? Code in the sense, let's say either you are writing a test case or you are writing some kind of programming. That is known as writing a code, right? So client is something where you write a code. That means an editor, whatever the editor. Let's say if you're working on Java or if you have worked on Java, you might have worked on Eclipse or IntelliJ. One of our colleague have worked on Cypress. So he should have worked on, like, probably he should have gone through with Visual Studio Code and so on, right? So those are known as a client, where we basically write our code. And then we basically execute our code. And then we basically Am I audible? Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. I'm so sorry. I believe like there was some disturbance. Okay, okay. So what happened in general is, I hope you people might, okay, you people should be able to see my screen now. Okay. So what happened in terms of Selenium is, whenever we start running the test case, first, this is a client where we write the code. And in terms of Selenium, there will be a Selenium standalone server. So client and server will get connected over the JSON wire protocol, which is over HTTP protocol. Okay. So then, like, what is HTTP protocol? I'll again take a session for that in coming days. But in terms of Selenium, the connection between the client and the Selenium standalone server will happen over HTTP connection. Okay, and then the code will be given to the browser, like specific browser driver. Let's say if you are working on Chrome browser, we need to have our Chrome browser installed in our system. Then we also have to install driver to work with Chrome browser. So we have to basically install Chrome driver. At the time of running the code, it will be given to the Chrome driver, and then Chrome driver will run our code on the Chrome browser. Okay, so there are like two steps involved in between. One is as soon as the connection will establish between client and server, after the running, after execution, like whenever we start executing, it first the connection will happen, and second, the browser driver will get the complete code, and that code or the test case, whatever we write in whatever the language, it basically runs on our browser. Okay, and then again, let's say if we are trying to get any kind of data from the element, then again like whatever the browser that we use, that browser will get the data from the element and will provide to the browser driver, and then this browser driver will provide us at the editor level, that means a client level. So in general, it follows a two-way one, like two-step process. One, it goes to the browser driver, and second, it goes to the browsers. Okay, whereas in terms of playwright, what happened is it is also a client and server based architecture, and also the connection between the client and server will get established over WebSocket connection. I'll again talk about WebSocket connection in next session. But in general, if I just provide you the overview of the WebSocket connection, WebSocket connection is a connection which will establish once, and after completion of all the test cases, the connection will be terminated. Whereas in terms of HTTP connection, for each and every lines of code, there will be one particular connection. What is meant by that? So let's say I have 4 lines or 4 5 lines of code over here, right? So for each lines of code, there will be one HTTP connection will be established between client and server. After completion of this action, which is entering the some kind of value, after completion of that, the HTTP connection will be terminated. And then again, for the next line, there will be another HTTP connection. Whereas in terms of playwright, when we talk about it is based on the WebSocket connection. So before starting any of the test case, it tries to connect to the server. So the connection will happen at the initial stage of the execution of the test case. And after completion of all the test case, not only one particular test case, but after completion of all the test case, the connection between a client and server will be terminated. Okay, so that is what known as WebSocket connection. And second advantage that we have over here is, now what is the advantage of using WebSocket connection? The execution will be much faster in terms of playwright. Why? Because it connects between a client and server once only. Whereas in terms of Selenium, for each and every lines of code, it will try to connect between client and server. That is where you might have observed sometime that sometimes the execution gets stuck at certain point of time in Selenium. Okay, that is one major advantage where playwright is much faster in terms of execution than Selenium. Okay, now second advantage over here is like we do not have to install any browser. Let's say I am working on any of the operating system, either it be a Windows operating system, MacBook, Linux, or anything. And if you do not have anything installed in our system, any browser installed in your system, still Playwright will be able to run on whatever the browser that you want to run. That means whatever the browser, wherever you want to execute your code, it will run on each and every browser, though your system does not have any of the browser. And third advantage over here is that in terms of Selenium, we have a middle layer or a third party tool, which is browser driver. Whereas in terms of Playwright, we do not have any third party tool, which is in terms of Selenium, we have browser driver. So what happened in terms of Playwright? Playwright is as soon as we start execution, The code will directly talk to the browser, and then browser, let's say if you are trying to get some kind of response from any of the element, then browser will directly give you the response at the client level. That means at editor level, wherever you are working on. Okay, any confusion or any question over here? I hope you people are following the session. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop me in between. I'll try to go in a deeper way. Um, till now, any question or any confusion? Anyone can answer, please, and then I'll move.
You can move on.
Okay, great. Now we'll see some of the advantage. Okay, so now we'll see some of the advantage, few of the advantage that we have in terms of Playwright. So generally, what is Playwright? Playwright is an automation tool as well as it is a framework. So when we talk about a Playwright or when we talk about a Selenium, Selenium is just a automation tool. It is not a framework. It is just an automation tool. Now, what is tool? Tool is generally a jar file. So what happened is like whatever the software that we see in market or whatever the software that we install in our system, those used to be a jar file. So someone have developed a code and they have placed at so and so server. Okay, and that we try to download from the Google and then install in our system. That used to be a jar file, which consists of classes, methods, that means a package, classes, methods, and properties. In the same way, Playwright is also a tool. Selenium is also a tool. That means those are just a jar file. Jar file consists of package. Now, what is meant by package? Package is something which consists of a multiple classes. So if you see over here, whatever the folder name that you see, those are known as package. These are packages. Inside this, there will be a lot of classes. Inside the classes, there will be a lot of methods and properties. Right? So all those combinations of classes, methods, properties, and the package known as a jar file. Okay. Now, Playwright is also one of a framework. Now, when I say like Playwright is also one of a framework, what is meant by that? So if you have worked on Selenium, you might have used either TestNG or JUnit to write your test case by using @test annotation. You use before all, after all, before each, after each, and so on. So for that, we basically have to depend on third-party tool, which is TestNG or JUnit. Whereas in terms of Playwright, Playwright has specifically provided or everything inside the Playwright tool itself. That is where it is known as one of a framework as well, which do not take a support from any of the third-party libraries or tool, and it is like only the Playwright is enough to write the test cases as well as to write the assertion. When I talk about assertion, that is validation of the test case. That means whatever the execution that I have done, whether that have been successful or not. So we generally validate, right? In any of the tools and technology. In terms of Selenium, we use either TestNG or JUnit, whereas in terms of Playwright, we have Playwright specific method that they have given, and that's where it is also known as a framework. Okay, now Playwright is generally a end-to-end testing automation tool. What is meant by end-to-end? That means you can write any of the test case using Playwright. If you want to go for unit testing, you can go for unit testing. If you want to go for integration testing, you can go for integration testing. If you want to go for regression, or if you want to just go for the end-to-end flow of the automation, you can write it with the Playwright. Now, what is the advantage? I can use Selenium as well, but Selenium will not help us in writing the unit test case. Selenium mostly will not help us in writing the integration test case. Sometimes it will help, sometimes it get failed. Now, one advantage over here is that Playwright has a auto waiting concept. Okay. Now, what is in that? So, most of you people have worked on Selenium. You might be knowing that whenever you have to interact with an element on the web page, you basically have to validate whether you you generally have to check whether the element is displayed on the page or not, or element is visible on the page or not, right? So for that, we generally have to write one extra line of code or two extra line of code to check whether the element is displayed on the page or visible on the page or clickable on the page or not. That thing we do not have to check in terms of playwright. That means we do not have to check whether the element have displayed, visible or clickable on the page or not. Playwright automatically take care of those things. Also, Playwright has an auto waiting concept. Whenever we write WebDriver wait, if you have worked on Selenium, you might be knowing what is WebDriver wait. That is generally to wait for an element for certain seconds to check whether the element have been displayed or not. Playwright, in terms of Playwright, we do not have to write any waiting concept. Playwright automatically take care of the waiting capability, and it has a default waiting time of 30 seconds. What is meant by that is, so example, if you talk about, if I talk about, if you see this particular code over here. So I have written, this is one of a line, and before our session, I was trying to practice it out. So I have written this one. What we are trying to do over here is we are trying to fill an element. Okay, fill some kind of text inside an element. Now what happened over here is, let's say if you have given a wrong locator, or the application is slow, or any kind of environment issues if it is happening, then Playwright will automatically wait for 30 seconds for this element to appear on the page. We do not even have to write even a single line of code to wait for 30 seconds for an element. Okay, so we do not even have to write a single line of code to wait for. Playwright will automatically take care of waiting concept, and the default time is 30 seconds. Okay, they have given a flexibility that we can override. If we want to wait for 100 seconds, we can wait. But what is meant by waiting for 100 seconds? So if it is able to find out the value, if it is able to find out the element within a second, then it will keep on executing. That doesn't mean for each and every lines it will wait for 30 seconds. Wherever it is not able to find out, there it will wait for 30 seconds, and even after 30 seconds, if it is not able to find out, then it will throw us an error. Okay, so with this default waiting concept, Playwright has removed a stale element exception. Now, sometimes we'll get stale element exception. What happen is, like, due to some kind of issues in application, we will not be able to identify whether the element have displayed or not, and it will throw us an error. Those things Playwright has automatically removed by waiting for 30 seconds. By waiting for a default time of 30 seconds. We should be able to override it. We'll go through with that as well. This is one major advantage. Second, we have similar to Selenium, that it works on major browser, it works on major operating system, different operating system, and so on. In terms of Playwright, whatever the code that we write for web application, the same code will also work for mobile browser application. That means for Android mobile, the Google Chrome will be the default browser, and for iOS mobile, the Safari will be the default browser. So if you want to run the same code on the mobile browser as well, the same code will work on the mobile version of browser as well. Okay. Now the next one that we have is something known as Playwright also supports a different language. So here it is having an edge over Cypress in terms of Playwright. So Cypress only supports like JavaScript, whereas Playwright supports all the mostly like whatever the popular language that we have in currently in the market, which is Java, Python, C#, JavaScript, TypeScript, and so on. Okay, now there are few major advantages that Playwright has given. One is uh, Playwright have a traces as a feature. Traces is something which collects all the log file. Okay, it collects all the log file. That means step-by-step execution, whatever happened, it will keep on adding as a log file. So in terms of Playwright, we do not even have to take the help of any of the third party tool for writing the log file. It automatically generates the log file with all the steps in it, whatever the execution that it has gone through, everything, every details it will log inside the traces. Second is Playwright automatically take the screenshot as well. So they have given a flexibility that when do you want to take the screenshot, that you have to just give it inside a configuration file. The configuration file, if I talk about, this is the configuration file, which is playwright.config.ts over here. So inside this, you can just have to mention one line of code, which is screenshot colon on. If you just make like this, which is screenshot colon on, it will keep on taking the screenshot for each and every lines of execution. We do not even have to write any methods, any generic methods, or we do not have to take help from any of the third party. Now, this has also given one major advantage, that it automatically record the video as well. It automatically record the video for the test execution as well. So, and if you have worked on taking the recording of your test execution, you might be knowing that how hard it used to be in terms of writing, like writing the code for recording the test execution in terms of Selenium and Java. Whereas in terms of Playwright, we do not have to write even a single line of code. It automatically take care of the taking the video recording of the test cases as well. Okay, as I talked about logging mechanism, it's stored inside the traces, and it also have a feature where for the failed test case, it automatically retries as well. So if you provide like 5 numbers of time, it will automatically retry for the failed test cases as well. So this is another major advantage that we have in terms of Playwright over others. Any confusion over here till now? I hope you people are following the session.
Yes,
Okay.
just one small question here, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Like, I can read through, like, it supports C#.NET as well. Will that the feature traces be also be working for C#.NET as well, or is it only for Java?
So for all the language, all the features that we are going through with will work for all the other languages that we have. Not only for Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, it will work for all the other languages as well.
Okay, so including the mobile and the web for the traces.
Including, right.
Thanks.
Okay. Now Playwright has given a few other advantages, that it has an inspector tool. Inspector tool is something where that is also known as a test executor, where it will display all the test case that we have written inside the framework or project, and from there also we'll be able to use it out. I'll let you know like what is Playwright inspector tool, or I'll show you that as well. Let me try to show you over here. So how do we open it is like by using, do not worry what is this code. I am just trying to open the inspector tool over here. So inspector tool is something where we can write the code and debug the test phase, where we can execute the code and debug the failed test cases. So if you see over here, I'm just trying to run it out. It will run whatever the test case I have ran it over here. It will try to run everything inside this particular test case, inside this particular tools itself. This is known as inspector tool, where you can, the advantage for this is a very huge. Like if you just see over here, I'm trying to run the test case, and it is running one of a test case that I have written for uh, for one of my session. So if you see over here, you can see every execution of the steps. So if you see this one, what happened, what is the action have been performed, the URL have been launched, what happened before, nothing was there on the page, what happened after a URL have been launched. Now again, what happened over here? So it is saying that the next action will be performed on this particular element. For the next test step, it is saying that the next action will be performed on password. Now if you see over here, it has filled the username as well over here. So if you see in this case, it is saying I'll perform the action on username. What happened before? Nothing. What happened after? student. That means of something have been entered over here. So all these steps execution you should be able to see here as well on the inspector tool. This tool is a very time saving or a time saver as part of the debugging, like issues debugging. If there are any kind of issues, we can directly open the inspector tool, run it, and then see what are the issues that we have, and we can understand from here as well. Every details it will provide us inside the console, errors, whatever the errors will be there. If you want to see what are the network calls that it has made, what are the attachment that we have for each and every lines of code, it has taken the screenshot as well. Okay, and we can also time travel in between. What is meant by that is you can see what happened before the execution and what happened after the execution. For each and every lines of code, you should be able to see what happened before the execution and what happened after the execution, so that in terms of debugging any issues, it will be very easy and a time saver as well. This is again a very good tool that Playwright has given, which help us in monitoring and debug every steps of execution, can see every steps on a fly and verify if there are any kind of issues. Now, one major advantage again that is coming up is Playwright has a built-in API library. Now, what is meant by that is that means Playwright also supports API automation as well. We do not have to depend on any of the third party. Again, Playwright specifically will also be able to support the API testing. That means sometimes what happen in terms of automation is like we'll have to fire an API call and check the response, and then based on that response we try to check inside the UI whether that is working or not. That means web application, whether that is working or not. So those will be very easy in terms of Playwright. Also, you can go for specifically the API testing as well by using Playwright. Okay, so Playwright has built-in support for API. In terms of Selenium, if we talk about, Selenium will not be able to support API testing. Playwright will completely be able to support the Playwright testing as well. We can write the mix of web and API testing. We can write the complete web automation testing. We can also write a complete API automation testing by using Playwright. Okay. Now, add similar to Selenium IDE. If you might have heard, Selenium IDE is a tool which used to record and playback, but that is not so reliable. Whereas in terms of Playwright, we also have one of a tool known as CodeGen. CodeGen is a tool which is used to generate the code on fly. That means record and playback. This is also a record and playback tool, which is like 99% of the like having a reliability of 99%. That means whatever the code it generate, you can directly copy paste in your framework or your project, and it will start working on. This will also go through not in our today's workshop, but in our later sessions. So these are few of the advantages that we have. I'm not sure if you people have worked on or have heard about Shadow DOM element. In terms of Selenium, automating the Shadow DOM element used to be a nightmare. At least for me, in the initial days, it used to be a nightmare. I spent a lot of time to check how do I have to automate Shadow DOM element around 7-8 years back. But in terms of Playwright, it says that even a Shadow DOM element, I'll consider it as a normal element. So automating a Shadow DOM element is again a very, very simple in terms of Playwright. We'll explain this one going forward as well regarding the Shadow DOM element. So these are a few of the advantages that we have in terms of Playwright over other tools and technology in terms of automation. The one most important thing is Playwright is an open source, which is freely available in the market. Anyone can use, anyone can install and start using it. Okay, so any question regarding the advantage that we have in terms of Playwright? Any question for now?
Yeah, just one, like, when you said about the APIs, it supports API testing as well. Wondering, like, can we configure it to any of the databases as well? and do some data validation from Playwright?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So you should be able to do the database connection as well as get the data and validate it using the Playwright. But again, as we know that in terms of connecting with the database, there is some kind of specific code that we have to depend on the technology. Technology in the sense, if we are working on Java, then we have to depend on Java. If you're working on JavaScript, then we have to depend on JavaScript to connect between the database and get the data.
No, currently we are on C#.NET, so should be.
Right. I mean, even in terms of C#.NET as well, there are some kind of things that we have to install driver, write a query using any of the query language, either SQL, MongoDB, or Postgre, and then you basically get the data from the database, right? So we generally have to write the similar kind of code to connect with the database, get the data, and then you can directly start using it the inside basically your project or framework using Playwright.
Cool. Cool.
I have a quick question.
Yes, there.
So we know that we can't deny that there is a lot of advantages in the Playwright, at least comparing to Selenium. What are the two technical disadvantages that if I ask you to highlight in Playwright, what would you highlight? Two disadvantages in Playwright.
Okay. Right. So in terms of Playwright, few of the disadvantages that I have seen. One is whenever you go for integrating with different reporting part, right? Whenever you have to go to integrating with different reporting part, like example extent report, it does not automatically support the extent report. It does not automatically support some of the report. Whatever the report that it generate, it will be a HTML dot pie chart, dot chart, line chart, and so on. It supports a reporting by using some of the third-party tool. Example, Allure reporting it supports by installing the Allure. This is one disadvantage that I see. Second, in terms of technicality, is that Playwright have not much support that it has given in terms of the mobile automation. So it has generally restricted towards only the web automation and API automation, whereas currently it does not have any support for the mobile app automation. I'm talking about mobile browser. Anyways, it is supporting, but for mobile app automation, it is not supporting anything. Whereas if we talk about the Selenium, it supports like 40% of the mobile automation as well. That means whatever the method that we use for web automation, the similar method works in terms of the APM automation as well. That means a mobile automation as well. So if I just talk about the two things, these are the two disadvantages that I see, which if they come up with, probably will replace all the tools that we have in the market right now.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So one last question on the same follow-up. So when you say the reporting, that is if I use Cucumber BDD, I can use the Cucumber HTML report, right? So these kind of reports it can support. So what you mean to say, if I wanted to integrate with a lot of, that is comparing to Selenium, I can integrate a lot of reports, right? Same way, Playwright has limitations in integrating third-party reports. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, you like there are a lot many. If I talk about, see, BDD Cucumber, you have talked about the BDD Cucumber, right? So there is one more limitation that we have in terms of BDD Cucumber. We were talking about something like this, which is default waiting time of 30 seconds, traces, logging mechanism, automatic taking the screenshot videos and all. That will not work with BDD Cucumber framework along with Playwright. So this is one another disadvantage that Playwright has. It the default concept that Playwright has given for the Playwright framework, because what happened, as I said earlier, Playwright is also a framework. BDD is another framework, right? So we have to integrate with BDD BDD, and whenever we integrate with any of the third-party tool for a framework, or specifically framework, then default concept of playwright will not work. Default in the sense, the default waiting time, the default making the logging mechanisms default, taking screenshot videos and all will screenshot will work, videos will not work, whereas logging mechanism will not work in terms of BDD integration. Okay,
One question.
but we should be able to integrate with the BDD Cucumber as well in Playwright. Yes.
Yeah, does it support client server based applications? Anything the client based or only web only?
So it currently supports web application, API application, that means API automation. When we talk about only the client base, it generally supports a client and server base application. So mostly you can consider it as a web application.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question? So in terms of automation purpose, you should be able to use for any of the tools, any of the application, either it used to be a Salesforce or anything. Integration wise, you can integrate with any of the third-party tools as well. Okay. Any other question from anyone? Okay. So if nothing else, then let's jump to our second things that we have in terms of our agenda is to install and set up the playwright. Now let's see uh, how easy it used to be in terms of setting up the playwright. Okay. Anyways, I'll discuss everything in detail again in our other session. So first thing that we have is I have already prepared a complete documentation of playwright. I'd request you people to, share your name and contact number. If WhatsApp contact number is there, that would be grateful so that I can share this particular document after our session and few other links as well to go through with. Okay, so if you can just share your name and contact number in the chat would really be helpful for us. Okay, now whatever I talk about or whatever we'll be talking about the playwright will everything will be for all the different operating system that we use, Windows, MacBook, and so on. Okay, so to work with playwright, we have some kind of system requirement. What are those system requirement is we need to have Node.js installed in our system. Okay, and also we need to have one of the operating system. Either you use Windows or you use MacBook or Linux and so on. Okay, these are the two requirement that we have in terms of working with or start working with Playwright. And the third thing is we need to have some kind of editor in the sense where the place like a tool where we'll be writing the code. So to work with JavaScript and TypeScript, to work with a language JavaScript and TypeScript, Visual Studio Code is a best supporting tool for JavaScript and TypeScript. This have been developed by Microsoft. Playwright have also been developed by Microsoft. Okay, so what what I mean to say over here is to work with Playwright, we need to have first Node.js installed in our system. Second, we also require first is Node.js, second is Visual Studio Code that we'll be using, which is an editor. Visual Studio Code is an editor. It is also known as VSC. It is just an editor where we'll be writing the test cases and all the codes. And third is Playwright installation. Okay. So we'll go through it one by one, all these three in terms of installation. I'll just show you what is the steps that it has in terms of installing. And apart from that, I have already installed it, so it will not allow me to install it again and again. But I'll show you each and every steps that we can, how do we install it. One is Node.js. So you can directly jump to any of the browser that you are trying to use. Let's say if you're using Google Chrome, you can search it out, Node.js installation, install Node.js. Okay, you can go to the first return result, which is download Node.js, and go inside this pre-built installer and click on download Node.js. Based on your operating system, it will automatically identify, and you click on this one. As soon as you click, it will install a software. It basically install a executable file, which will ask you to click a few times next, 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 and at the end you can just click on finish. So after installation of this Node.js, after successful installation of Node.js, what you can do is you can go to a terminal. Either you can go to a terminal or command prompt. If you're working with Windows, then you can go to command prompt. If you're working with MacBook, then you can go to terminal and check whether the Node.js have been installed or not. So for that, you have to type a command known as node space hyphen hyphen v. Node space hyphen hyphen v. Sorry, hyphen hyphen version. Okay, and if it have been successfully installed, then it will display you some kind of message, some kind of version of the node. Okay, if it is displaying some node version, that means Node.js have been successfully installed in your system. Now if you see, this will be the executable file, which will generally ask you to click on next, next, next few times, and then at the end it will ask you to click on finish. Okay, for now I have already installed, so I'll not install it again. At the end, it will just ask you to click on finish button. The second requirement, if we talk about, is to install a Visual Studio Code. For that also, again, you can directly go to any of the browser that you are using, and you can search out for Visual Studio Code download. Go to the first one that it has returned the result, and from here, based on your operating system, if you're working on Windows, then you can click on here. If you're working on MacBook, you can click on here. Apart from that, any other, you can click on either of these one. This will again this will again download a executable file, which will ask you a few of the questions like click on next, 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 and so on. And after that, it will install the Visual Studio Code inside your system. Now the Visual Studio Code, whenever you open it for the first time, this will look like this kind of things. You will see the Visual Studio Code like this, which you will also see a welcome screen on this particular page. This is a Visual Studio Code where we'll be writing all the codes in terms of playwright. Okay. So in terms of working with playwright, the prerequisite used to be first we need to have Node.js installed in our system, and we also have to have one editor, which is for JavaScript and TypeScript. The best editor is Visual Studio Code, which we have to install in our system. And after that, we can go for playwright installation. Okay, so in general, these two installation will not take more than 2 minutes of time. And now we'll jump into the playwright installation. Now let's see how easy it used to be in terms of installing the playwright. Okay, first thing that we have to do is, I have also prepared the complete document. Every details have already been given over here. So first thing that we have to install Node.js, then Visual Studio Code, and then we have to install playwright dependencies. For that, it is saying create a directory in your system and use the below command to start with playwright. That means it is asking us first to create a folder. Whenever you open this, you will get a welcome screen. You can close that out and you can click on this Explorer. Explorer option will be there. It is a first option. You can click on this. It will open like this kind of things. If your code is available inside any of the repository, you can directly clone it. Or if you're working, or if you're trying for your practice purpose, then you can click on open folder. create a folder inside your system. I'm just trying to create a folder over here. So I'll create a folder. Let's say we'll give the name as workshop nav 30. Okay, I've just created this folder and selected the same folder as well, and click on select folder. As soon as you click, whatever the folder name that you have given over here, it will open on this particular editor. That means Explorer on the Visual Studio Code. Okay, now we'll go for installation of Playwright. Okay, so it says that create a directory in your system and use the below command to start installation of Playwright. It says that run from your project root directory. So we can go to the terminal inside our Visual Studio Code. There are three ways in which we can open a terminal. One is you can go to view and click on this terminal. This will open a terminal over here inside the Visual Studio Code itself. This will help us in writing some of the commands. Commands to run the test case, commands to install some kind of dependencies, and so on. This is one way. Second is you can click on this menu option, which is three dot option, and click on terminal and then click on new terminal. It will again take us to the terminal. And third way is in your Visual Studio Code, you will see one option which is known as no problem, a cancel mark over here. You can click on this. It will take us to the problem, and from here we can jump to the terminal. Okay. Now, if you see this is the complete path of the folder that we have created over here. So that means we are on the root of this particular folder. Okay. And now we are trying to install Playwright. See, if you have worked on Selenium and Java, you might be knowing that you have to create a framework where you have to have pom.xml, which is pom.xml, and inside that pom.xml you have to place all the dependencies so that whenever you try to execute it or install it, all the dependencies will be automatically installed. So for that, you have to go to Maven repository, collect all the dependencies along with the version, and then place it over there, right? Whereas in terms of Playwright, it is so smooth and so simple that it will not even take more than 30 seconds of time to install the complete setup of Playwright. Okay, now let's see how do we install the Playwright. Please be on the system. You'll just see that within 30 seconds, it will be able to install the complete Playwright setup. So to install the complete Playwright, we have a command known as npm init playwright. npm stands for Node Packaging Manager. Init stands for initialize, and what kind of initialization? We are trying to initialize Playwright. Okay, so based on the internet speed, it will take some time. Currently, I'm in remote area of India, so it might take some few seconds of time, few more seconds of time, as my internet is very slow. But if your internet is very good, working properly, then if your internet is working properly, then it should install everything within 30 seconds of time. But before installation, it will ask us few of the questions. What kind of language that you want to use, whether you want to use TypeScript or JavaScript. So this depends on, here it is asking whether TypeScript or JavaScript. I think we're recording, yes. TypeScript or JavaScript, because we are using Visual Studio Code. So it majorly supports JavaScript and TypeScript. If you use Eclipse or IntelliJ, then it will ask you to select different languages. For now, I'll select just JavaScript and then click on enter. After that, it's ask us, where do you want to write your test case? Where do you want to put your end-to-end test case? Okay, so for that also, it will automatically create a folder. It is asking us, where do you want to put it? I'll keep it as test itself for now. And then it is also asking us whether you want to create a CI/CD flow. That means GitHub Actions CI/CD pipeline, whether you want to create or not. If you want to create, you can place it with, you can make it true, If you do not want to create, then you can just keep it like false. For now, I'll keep it at false. And now it will start installation of complete things. Now you'll observe some of the folders, some of the files will be installed over here. As I said, like my internet is very slow, not so fast. It might take few of the seconds, but if you are trying to install, it will not take more than 30 seconds of time to complete installation of the playwright. Okay, so that's it. If you get at the end, if you get something known as happy hacking, that means everything have been properly installed in terms of playwright. So if you see over here, everything have been set up completely for us. Everything. We do not have to install anything right now to work with playwright. Okay, after installation, it has given few of the commands as well, that how do we run the test case and so on. That we'll see again in our other sessions. So with this, we have completely installed our playwright dependencies. That means a playwright framework. And now we are good to go with writing the test case. Any question over here for now for the installation?
Actually, why do we need Node.js? No,
Right.
what is
So
important?
right. So advantage is whenever we work with Playwright, Playwright has a server known as Node.js. So as the architecture says that it is a client and server-based architecture, so Playwright takes a support of the server as well, and that server, whenever we work with JavaScript and TypeScript, is a Node.js. Now, what is Node.js? Node.js is similar to JRE, which is in terms of Java, we have a JRE. In terms of JavaScript, we have a Node.js. So Node.js is an open source cross-platform backend JavaScript runtime environment. That means it helps us running the JavaScript code. Whenever we write a JavaScript or TypeScript code, Node.js help us in running those code, whatever we write by using JavaScript or TypeScript. And that is why we also require a Node.js to be installed to work with Playwright whenever we go for JavaScript and TypeScript. But if you are going with Java and other language, then at that point of time we do not require Node.js. Does it answer your question?
Okay.
Okay. Great. So let's move to the next one. If I'll again request you people to share if you have not shared your name and contact number. It will be helpful for us in terms of sharing few of the documents. Now let's move to the next part that we have in our session, which is to write a basic test case in terms of Playwright. Now, one thing that we have to understand is at the time of installation, it has created a global configuration file. This is also known as a test runner. Whenever we run any of the test case in terms of Playwright, it generally come to this particular file and check what are the different options that we have inside this configuration file. Everything will be applied automatically to each and every test cases. Okay, now we can also see that it has automatically given the browser name as well. We do not have to put anything apart from this. For now, I'll comment these two other browser as well. But the advantage that I was talking about, if you see, I'm working currently in Windows operating system. That means I'm working on Windows. But if I try to, if I try to, run our test case on the Safari browser, which I do not have installed in our system, this will also run in the Safari browser as well. Okay, so let's move ahead for our next thing, which is writing simple test cases. I'll for now it basically provides some kind of examples over here at the time of installation. It generally provides 30 odd examples at the time of installation for the playwright test. If you need that, you can go through with if you have already installed the playwright. For us, Currently, we do not require, so I have deleted it. I'll create a file over here to write the test case. So whenever we have to write the test case, now you might have seen that at the time of installation, it asks us a question where to put your end-to-end test case. And for that, we had said that create a folder which is test, and inside that test itself, we'll be writing all the test cases. So if you create another folder and you try to write test case inside that particular folder, then Playwright will not be able to understand. Let's say if you want to change this test to, let's say, XYZ, then you again have to come back to this playwright.config.js and change the folder that it has automatically placed at the time of installation from test to XYZ or whatever the file name that you provide. Okay, now every test case we will be writing inside the tests folder itself. Let's go ahead and write a basic test and just say the name as, let's say, login page test dot. Whenever we have to write a test case, whenever we have to write a test case in Playwright, the nomenclature of the file or the notation of the file will be the file name, whatever the file name that you want to provide it over here, dot spec dot JS. If you are working with JS, then JS. If you're working JavaScript, if you're working with JavaScript, then .js. If you're working with TypeScript, then .ts. Okay, and then click enter. So what it have done, what it has done is it has created a JavaScript file along with the spec. This is also known as a spec file. Whenever we write a test case in Playwright, that is also known as a spec file. Okay, now here we'll be writing some kind of code or some kind of test case. Now we know that whenever we are trying to use any API or any classes or method to use the classes or the method of any of the API, we also have to import those APIs, right? Example, let's say if you're using Java and you are trying to use ArrayList, then what do we do generally is we import java.io.util package, right? Why do we import? Because ArrayList is available inside that package. ArrayList class is available inside java.io.util package, and inside that we have ArrayList, and so that whenever we import those packages, whatever is available inside the packages to work with ArrayList will automatically be imported on our editor, right? So to work with the Playwright, we have to import few of the things. The first thing that we have to import is to work with the test case. The first and mandatory steps in all the spec file, in all the test cases file, will be to import test and expect function from Playwright. Okay, now what is meant by that? This test function will help us in writing the test case. This expect function will help us in writing the assertion. Okay, now without talking much, I'll just directly jump over here. So whenever we import something for Playwright, we have to provide it inside the curly braces. So we can directly say it as const. Const, do not worry like what is const. Const is basically a keyword that is available inside JavaScript and TypeScript to declare a variable. Okay, and then we have to say it as require. What we are trying to do, we are trying to import, we are basically trying to import test and expect function from where? From Playwright test module. Okay, now if you hover over on this, wherever this Playwright test module is available, it will show you the path of that particular file. Okay, so what we have done is this is the mandatory step that it will go as a first step inside any of the files. So let's say if you are trying to create n number of test file, then all the test file will have the first mandatory step will be to import test and expect module. This will help us in this test will help us in writing the test case. Expect will help us in writing the assertion. But just seeing the time that we have left out, I'll directly jump into writing the test case without much discussion over here right now. So using the test, as I said, using the test function, you will be able to write the test case. And this function accepts a couple of parameters. If you hover over on this, it says that it declares a test in playwright. It accepts a couple of parameters. One is title, which is unique in nature, and second is a function. Will also go through everything in terms of technology, which is JavaScript and TypeScript. We'll understand how do we declare different types of functions in JavaScript and TypeScript. One of a function that we'll be using over here is we'll go through in terms of writing the test case. So whenever we have to declare a test case, first inside the test function will be the first parameter will be our title. So I'll just say it as login page test, and second will be, as we know, a body. So body will be a function that will be declaring, and this function will generally we can declare any of the function. Do not worry like how do we declare a function over here right now, but in general we declare a function to write the test step of a test case. So we'll be writing a function over here. This function will take a fixture which generally what is fixtures is basically a special type of method which used to which used to perform a setup and tear down of the test cases. That means setting up the browser, and closing out the browser at the end of the test case. So first thing, I'll directly use a page fixture over here. We'll discuss everything again in detail. And this is the function that we have written over here. This is a function that we have in terms of either JavaScript or TypeScript. In both of the languages, we have the similar kind of function. This is also known as an arrow function in JavaScript and TypeScript. This document also, I'll share it with you people on the contact number that you have shared. So async and await concept is something where we have to so for each and every lines of code now we'll be appending with await. Now, why do we use async and await is another story, another concept that we have in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. So JavaScript is generally asynchronous in nature. One of our colleagues have already worked on Cypress and JavaScript, so you might be knowing that what is asynchronous. Asynchronous in the sense that the step that we write will not go in a synchronous manner. That means will not run in a sequential manner. Example, let's say if we are writing some lines of code, which is, let's say, launch the URL as the first line, second, fill the username and password, and third is to click on submit button. Example. So in terms of JavaScript, it will not guarantee us in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript language, it will not guarantee us that the first line, which is launching the URL, will be executed as a first line. There might be a chances that it might execute this particular line, which is click on the submit button as well. Okay, so to make that synchronous, we use a sync and await concept. Okay, now let's try to see how do we write a basic test case over here. Any question for now? I hope you people are following the session. Any question till now? Okay. So
What is a pace?
page is a fixture. Fixture I was talking about, it used to be a special method which does some kind of setup and tear down. So page is over here that it will automatically launch the browser as well as it will create a page on the browser. Now, now you might be wondering that, okay, where did we declare the browser? So every browser setup have been automatically done inside the configuration file. We do not even have to do any kind of things inside the projects. Inside the config, this is also known as configuration file. Inside this file, every browser have been set it up over here automatically. Okay, so whatever the browser that we declare, based on the browser that we declare, it will automatically launch the browser as well as create a page on the browser. Okay, so it says that it isolates a page instance created for each test. Wherever we use page fixture, it automatically launches the browser as well as create the page on the browser. Okay, now I'll use this application, which is one of a dummy application that we have for testing the login page. It has given few of the scenarios. I'll share the URL over here so that you people can use it for the practice purpose if you would like to. And from here itself, the first test case that it has given, which is positive login test. What it says is, this is how we generally write a manual test case. And in terms of automation, why do we go for automation? It's to automate the repetitive task, right? Automate the regression scenarios and so on. This is the first scenario where it says open a page, which is open a URL, then type username, add student, type password, add some values, and then click on submit button. And also validate whether this particular URL after clicking on submit button is appearing or not. Some of the validation that it is asking us to validate whether new page contains expected text, and validate whether logout is displaying over here or not. So let's try to see in terms of manual. In terms of manual testing, what do we do is we launch the URL, then fill the username, whatever it has given, fill the password, and then again click on submit button. After clicking on submit button, you will see it is displaying logged in successfully. It is also displaying a logout button available over here. That is what it was saying for the first test case, which is validate whether congratulations or successful logged in is displaying, and also logout button is displaying on the page. Let's try to do an automation for this test case one, which is positive login test. This is the URL that we have to launch. In terms of working with Playwright, how do we launch the URL is Playwright. Now this fixture that we have used, this becomes a control, the complete control of our test case. Now using this fixture itself, we will be able to utilize all the methods that are available inside Playwright. Whatever we have to do, or whatever we have to write by using a Playwright, we'll be able to use using this fixture itself. Fixture is special type of function that I have discussed. The work of this page fixture is to launch the browser, create the page on the browser. Now what is page? So if you see this one, whenever you launch a browser, right, we generally have gone here and clicked on new incognito window, and so this it has opened. This is basically a context, a Chrome context. As soon as we click on this new incognito window, internally there will be a lot of things happen. It first create a context, and then on this particular context it opens a page. This is known as page. Now again, if you click on this, it opens a new tab. This is another page. Again, if you click on plus tab over here, this will create a new page. That is known as a new page. So this page fixture will automatically set it up a browser, whatever the browser that we have declared inside configuration file over here. And then it will also create a page. Now this page fixture becomes our complete control. Using this page fixture itself, we will be able to utilize all the methods that we have available inside Playwright. So first method that we have is to launch the URL. Playwright has given a method known as goto. Goto is a method which accepts a URL in terms of string format, and the URL that I have copied over here. What it says is it navigates to the URL that we have provided. So it just launched the URL on the browser that we have given inside configuration file. Okay. Now after launching this, what we have to do is we have to write a locator to identify the username. In terms of manual testing, we visually see. In terms of automation, we have to make our code aware that we are trying to automate or we are trying to work with few of the elements. Okay, so for that we have to write a locator. Locator discussion again will be a vast concept. We'll be discussing again sometime later. But if you have already understanding of CSS selector, then we know that whenever we have ID as a property available, we can directly use hash and hash and then um, ID value, whatever the value that it has, it is displaying inside the DOM structure. It is known as DOM, which is document object model. It generally displaying two different items, which is saying one of two. We can also make it over here as tag name hash ID value. So it is now able to identify this username uniquely. I'll have already created a video, but I'll also explain in a session later on, like how do we write the code for how do we write the locators for any of the element. Now to write a locator, Playwright has given a plain English language method, which is known as simple locator. Locator is a method which is used to identify the element on the web page. And now what we have to do for this username, we have to fill this particular student over here, right? That means we have to enter text as student. So to enter the text using Playwright, we have a method known as fill. So however we write in terms of manual testing, Playwright has given all those methods in the same language. What do we say is like, go to the URL, fill the username and fill the password, and then click on submit button. So the method is again similar, which is like go to is a method to launch the URL. Locator is a method to write the locator. Fill is a method to enter the text. And for the password as well, we'll be using the similar method, which is fill. So for password, I'll just write it as password over here. It is able to identify the password, which is again, we have to write await on each and every lines of code. And here, what do we have to say is dot again fill the password. So what is the password that we have over here, which is password 123, right? So here we are trying to fill the password. And now the last one is to click on the login button, which is submit button. So we can identify it again, which we have a class over here or ID over here, which is again a submit. So we can use it again, hash and submit. We can see it is able to identify two different things. We can make it unique by using a tag name as well. So whenever we have ID as a property, we can directly use hash and then ID value. So we can write it again. And what do we have to do? We have to click on the submit button. So we have a method similar to Selenium, which is click on the submit button. Now till now, what did we do is we have launched the URL, fill the username, fill the password, and then click on submit button over here. Now our main validation is to validate whether the login is success or not. So for that, what we can do is we can validate whether logged in successfully is displaying on the page or not, right? So for this, again, we have to write a locator. So this is the class. Whenever we have a class property available on any of the element, we can directly use it with dot class dot and then class value. So if you see over here, dot, what is the value of the class over here, which is post hyphen title. So dot post hyphen title is able to identify login successfully. So I'll use this over here. Earlier, before starting the test case, we said that expect is a function which is used to write the assertion. So using the expect function, it accepts a parameter, which is what will be the actual value, what will be the expected value. So it generally compares the value and then we'll try to check whether expected and actual is matching or not. Okay, so here what we are trying to do is we are trying to check whether this logged in successfully have been displayed or not. For that, we have identified a locator and we'll directly say it as expect page.locator That means we have identified an element, and then we are saying either to be visible, that means this element should be visible on the page, or we can also say it as there are a lot of ways in which we can write the assertion for one particular element. One, as I said, to be visible. Second, we can say to contain text. What kind of text is logging successfully? Okay, so we can directly check in this way as well. Just identify a located element, and then we can write an assertion saying that whether this element contains a text logged in successfully or not. Okay. To the time constraint, I'll stop it over here. Probably you people can check it for the logout, whether that is displaying or not, by using again the expect. Write a locator for, let's try to write a locator as well for the logout. So for this logout, we have a reference over here. We have some other things. You can try to write it to identify this particular things. We have href over here. By using href also, you will be able to write, or we can also write a logout by using playwright specific method to write a locator. So I'll just write it as expect page. How do we write a locator? By using a page dot locator is one way, and second way is by using a page dot get by text. Whenever we have a text value, then we can directly use a page dot get by text. Get by text is a method that playwright has given to write a locator, and then we can say it as to be visible. Okay, so this is the complete test case for the first scenario that we have over here. Okay, let's try to let's try to execute it and see how it is working. So we currently have only one test case. So to run the test case, it has also given a command, run the end-to-end test. We can use a command known as npx playwright test. So let's try to run the same command that it has given, which is npx playwright test. By default, playwright will run in headless mode. By default, the test case will execute in a headless mode. To run it in headed mode, we have two options. One is we can provide it inside the configuration file saying that headless as false, headless colon false, or we can also make it in the command line itself by saying hyphen hyphen headed. And now if you try to run this, we'll see that it will launch the URL. It will fill the username, fill the password, and try to validate whether everything is successful or not. So playwright execution used to be so faster that we may not be able to see the complete execution as well. But if you see the result, we will see that it will log every details over here. I believe for some of the file that the execution is in. Okay, here it is. So I'll stop it over here. So the report was opened for one of a file. That is why it was not opening. Now, if you see the report, it has generated the complete details, complete log over here. Okay. As we have not given to take the screenshot and take the recordings, so it has not taken, but let's provide it over here inside the use, where I'll say it as screenshot as on, and also we'll say it as video as on over here. Now let's try to run once again the test case, and we'll see that it will also take the screenshot of the test execution as well as the video recording of the test execution as well. Okay, I'll just take a couple of more minutes and then we'll end up our session. I know this was a long session that I wanted to complete earlier, but it has taken due to some kind of going through with the advantage. Now, if you see every lines, you can see like what kind of execution it has done. We can see the screenshot that it has also taken. We can also see the recordings that it has generated. So if you see the recording, you can see like it is filling the username, clicked on submit button, and everything have been captured inside the recording as well. Okay, so with this, I'll stop the session over here by checking if you have any kind of questions. If you have any kind of questions in terms of understanding the playwright advantage, or any kind of questions that you have, I'll be happy to answer. The fourth one that we had as part of our agenda, we did not get time, so we could not convert it in terms of framework. So I'll directly jump into the question answer session. If you have, please feel free to ask. I'll take like next 5 minutes for the question answer session, and then we'll end up our session. Over to you, people.
Yes, what will we do in TypeScript script means what is the content? What will content cover in the TypeScript?
Okay, in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript, everything will cover up
No,
in terms of
sorry.
basic. So,
Uh,
yes, Ram.
no, sorry, playwright and not TypeScript in playwright content,
Right.
course content.
Okay. So, in terms of course content, everything will be covering up uh, as we have basically for the complete web automation. So if you see over here, the complete schedule that I have prepared. So it will start with introduction of playwright features, installation, creating a project, going through with the locators, going through with playwright special locators that it has given by using get by. One of them we have already used, which is get by text over here. If you see this one, this is get by text. So that is a playwright special get by locators. We'll go through with the different methods that we have, like all the exhausted number of methods that it has given, which is getting the text, all text content, first, last, automating drop down, going through with automating child windows, going through with inspector tools, different MOS operations, dynamic element validations, assertions, end-to-end writing the script in terms of playwright. We'll also go through with code gen, record and playback, hidden element validation, alert and pop-up validation, frames handling, file upload and download, shadow DOM elements, and a basic part of the API automation as well. That will be covering up in one of a session where we'll cover up like basic parts of the API. We'll write a script for web and APMX automation. We'll also see like how can we take this screenshot, though playwright automatically take this screenshot, but how can we take this screenshot? We'll go through with different MOS operation like click, right click, context click, and so on. We'll see like how playwright is also supports like visual testing. How can we handle like scroll down and all. One thing that you have to that you have to know is playwright automatically scroll down on the page, but if you want to scroll, write a method for scrolling down. We'll go through with that. Then we'll cover up the page object model framework. We'll cover up how do we get the data from the JSON file, Excel file, and so on. How do we run the test case in serial and parallel mode? We'll create a framework from scratch, which is page object model. We'll also go through with generation of report, which is HTML report and LUR reporting. We'll understand GitHub. How do we use version control and a CI/CD pipeline setup? And at the end, we'll also go for the BDD Cucumber framework. So these are the complete course content that we have for Playwright.
So
Does
is
it
there
answer your
no
question,
any
Rahul?
separate classes JavaScript?
Yes. So if you see the course content that we have, that I was going through with, that is starting from day 11. So from day 1 to day 10, we will be covering up all the JavaScript and TypeScript concept. Okay, so basics like what is JavaScript, TypeScript, data types, operators, statements and loops, functions, arrays, string, objects, and class as part of JavaScript. Does it answer your
How
question,
many
Rahul?
minutes of yes? How many minutes of class will be there in every day?
Every day
Because
will be
today,
1 hour of session. Today was a workshop, so it was for more than 1.5 hours, but generally daily it will be for 1 hour.
and in how many days will be finished this course?
We should be able to compare. See, as per the schedule we have prepared, 33 days will take, like 33 working days will take, which will be Monday to Friday working. So 33 days maximum, it will go till day 35. Because
If
we'll
any
also have to
class
cover
miss
up.
during,
Every recorded session will be provided to you for the lifetime access.
if any class missed during, suppose I am absence, so you will help. This is class repeated on one-to-one class or
You'll get the recording.
any
You'll get the
separate?
recording.
Okay. Mhm.
Yes. Any other question from anyone else?
Can you repeat assertion line number 14, 15 in code?
So assertion, what we are trying to do is, I've just done a simple assertion over here. This is line number 11 and 12. This is a simple assertion that we have done is we are saying that after successful login, we are trying to check whether an element is existing on the page, which consists of login successfully or not. If that particular element is available on the page, that means we have successfully logged in. And we are also trying to validate whether a logout button is available on the page or not. That is what we are trying to do over here by using an expect function. Expect function accepts a parameter which we have given here an element on the page, and we are saying that this particular element, whatever the element that we have identified, this particular element contains the logged in successfully as a text. And here we are saying this particular element is available on the page or not. Okay.
So can we apply? So can we apply assertion for username and password?
You can apply assertion for username and password as well. Everything you can check it out. You can check whether you have filled or not by just going by again um, taking the text value from this particular values and check whether you have successfully filed a text or not. So you should be able to do a validation for each and every things that we do in other tools. And apart from that also, Playwright have given few more advantage or few more flexibility where you can check directly on the page. Example, this is the things that we'll not be able to will not be able to do using TestNG or JUnit directly. For this one, we have to get the text from the element and then try to validate whether that text is matching with this or not. Whereas Playwright is saying you just identify an element and try to validate whatever the validation that you have to do. Okay, so everything you should be able to do as a part of assertion over here as well.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Any other question from anyone else?